All right, let's go. All right. So welcome, Anthony. I'm so thankful you're doing this with me. It's nice to be able to actually dialogue with somebody about this process. So I just wanted, you came into the Keto with KJ group, and we did some talking on the phone, but what I love is your background. Because it's interesting, people who have a background in mental health and especially with yours with the background in PTSD and addiction counseling. And then, we find ourselves kind of, in that position. So I was hoping that you would just share a little bit about, um, how you started, why, kind of your why, if you will, and also just, when you started, how did you start? Did you just kind of wing it, or did you, do research before you started? Some people are like, oh, I got to know everything before I dive in. Some people are like, I'm going to learn as I go. So just hoping to share, a little bit of that with us.
Well, I'd be delighted to, Kathy, and thank you so much for having me tonight. Well, my story is kind of more about blissful ignorance and misinformation. And I'll start at the beginning. You're going to laugh when I tell you this, but when I was younger, I was skinny and very muscular and quite a hottie. Okay.
Okay.
I know it's hard to believe, but
No,
I
I
was.
believe it. I believe it.
Anyway, but the reason I'm saying this is that I remember when I was 15 years old, some doctor said, you have low blood sugar, you have hypoglycemia. Now, looking
Hmm.
back, that should have told me I had some kind of condition or a disposition to some kind of metabolic challenge of some kind, okay? Because
Okay.
on the, ramp up to hyperinsulinemia and metabolic syndrome and diabetes, a lot of us start off as hypoglycemic. And of course, the doctor said, well, why don't you have a chocolate bar or orange juice? Because I would get dizzy and literally pass out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I remember once one of my teachers at school called home and they were wondering whether I was on drugs.
Oh, geez.
Okay. But I remember the misinformation. Well, why don't you have a candy bar? Keep a candy bar with you, or have some orange juice or fruit juice, and that was it. Done. No
Mhm.
blood test. No exact.
Yeah.
That's all they said. And because I was a jock, I could run 6 miles every day and not think about it. And
Right.
I was on the football team, the wrestling team, and I was gorgeous and great shape and I had the six pack and the whole
Nice.
deal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I got away
Mhm.
with it for years. Okay. And I would say that even in my 20s, 30s, probably somewhere around the 40s, I started to put on weight. Okay. And it didn't matter how much I ran, and I would go to the doctor and they would say, eat less and exercise more, right? And I go, but doc, I'm running 6 miles a day.
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
you know, and I kept putting on weight and I couldn't, and nobody said anything. And then I think somewhere along the line, somebody said, well, you're pre-diabetic, but that's all they said. They said your A1C is kind of, and again, but they never said that I was supposed to do anything.
Okay.
All they just said, this is what you got. And I go, and, you know, yes. So I guess I think what started me on my quest was the inexplicable, and again, I didn't really, I dabbled as a vegetarian and I dabbled, different types of restricting calories and stuff. I did the weight and measuring thing. You know what I mean? I
Right.
had fairly early on, I had stopped eating sugar because I read,
Okay.
one of the sugar books, you know,
Mhm.
and I stopped eating bread. Okay. Because that
Okay.
was but again, I didn't really know or understand. And then the obvious bad stuff. I didn't eat, cereal.
Right.
I went to the health food store and I bought everything that said healthy.
Right.
Okay, but guess what? All the it's all muesli.
Right.
Muesli's got just as much carbs in it as cornflakes
Yep. Yep.
or frosted whatever.
Yeah.
So again, so it was just total ignorance on my part.
Yeah.
And I remember about 25 years ago, a girlfriend of mine who was an RN said, there's this conspiracy. She was a bit of a conspiracy nut, but she said, there's this conspiracy between big agro and big food and big pharma and big med to keep us all sick and controllable. And with all the chemicals and the crap they're putting in our food. And I said, well, that's very interesting. Okay, thank you, dear. And it sort of
Right.
percolated, but I didn't do anything. However, at that time, I was starting to see a paunch. Okay.
Okay.
And I said, I don't understand this. Now I had started going to different Weight Watchers and, all these different groups. And if you look at their meals, they all are loaded with carbs.
Yep. Yep.
And some of them are even loaded with the sneaky sugars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they just followed the calories in, calories out model,
Exactly.
which does work. I mean, at the end of the day, you will see some results, but I think, like you're talking about, they bring those carbs in there and then they never address that hunger. You're never addressing the hunger.
I'm going to get into that part anyway. Well, the other part, I remember one doctor, okay, I think it was the guy with the cheese Danish. He says, why don't you eat 6 small meals a day?
Yeah.
And I went, okay.
Yeah.
And again, what we now know is that's even more suicidal than, But anyway, so I was just constantly getting given this bad information.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just doing because I'm a good little soldier, and
Mm-hmm.
I like to follow the rules, and I did what I was told, because they seemed like people in authority,
Yep.
and whatever. So I mean, I went from Weight Watchers. I mean, name a program, and I probably was in it, and
Right.
I even went to one that's called Overeaters Anonymous.
Sure.
Which is about food addiction. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
it started, and of course, my experience. Okay, we got a Michelle.
Oh, that's my sister.
Okay, let's see if Michelle comes in. Welcome, Michelle. Hold on. Hopefully, she comes in. I said admit. There she is. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle. We're just indulging in my long, shaggy dog story about how I got involved with this, and then we're going to turn around and anyway. So I joined Overeaters Anonymous, and the thing that astounded me, because as I mentioned, I was an addictions counselor, so I understood all the paradigms and the models of addiction. But what I noticed is that there were very few people who were actually in any kind of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And all they did was talk about their relapses. So I'm going, what's going on with this? Okay. The only guy in the meeting who had any kind of recovery was a guy who said he was doing a caveman diet.
Okay.
And I went, so I asked, and also the diets that were recommended by Overeaters Anonymous are all loaded with carbs. And again, I would follow them. I would follow them to the letter. I was a good boy. I'd wait and measure, and there would be the cravings, and there would be the the obsession. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And and still gaining weight because I had hyperinsulin, I had insulinemia, hyperinsulinemia. So
Mm-hmm.
so again, it's not even whether it's 1 ounce of carbs or 10 pounds of carbs or 20 grams of carbs, doesn't matter because that'll trigger the insulin.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing it 6 times a day, that's really triggering the insulin.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that then.
Right.
Okay. Now, when I act, then I took this guy with the caveman diet guy aside, and I said, well, what's a caveman diet? It's pretty much no carbs,
Yeah.
basically.
Was it more like carnivore type of?
Yeah, I mean, he said he didn't eat any vegetables whatsoever.
Okay. So, but we
He
were
said,
carnivore.
and he said he'd have a, and he would say, well, and I said, well, do you weigh and measure, and da da da. And he said, no, I just buy a piece of chicken, I cook it, and I eat it. And when I'm full, I stop.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
basic car. That's basic
Right.
carnivore. So, and at the guy goes, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the time I started looking at Atkins.
Okay.
Okay, because none of the other diets or food plans worked. I mean, because no, now what I know now about it, what I know now was
Mm-hmm.
that even 20 grams of carbs or 40 or whatever that number is that triggers your insulinemia, right?
Yep.
Your hyperinsulinemia. Uh, you're just putting fuel on the fire,
Yep.
and it's triggering the cravings. It's triggering everything. It's like sort of like going to an AA meeting and spiking the coffee with vodka.
Yeah.
But that's what that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
you're actually the drug. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
biochemically, the
Yep.
drug is the metabolic process that carbs get converted into sugar.
Yep.
Then, and if you have, and then that triggers the pancreas to produce insulin, and you've got this vicious circle
Mm-hmm.
insulin chasing, blood
Yep.
sugar chasing. You
Yep.
know what I mean?
Yep.
Just going around and round and round.
And your cells are going, please stop, please stop. And
Exactly,
then
and
the
your body
insulin's like
starts to
going,
shut
no, no,
down.
you need more, you need more, you need more.
It's just insanity. But
Yeah.
but there was nobody there who told me this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the only guy, like I said, who had made any sense at all was Mr. Caveman.
Okay.
Okay, so then I started. That's when I bought the book, the Atkins book.
Uh-oh.
I did the Atkins book, and then is that somebody's? Michelle, to think what's happening, you're getting some feedback from me or something. Michelle?
It sounds beautiful to me.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. Anyway, so at some point, I joined Atkins, and I did their classic system. Okay. Now in those days, they didn't have any of the shakes or the cookies or the all their crap that they sell now, right? But what happened was, I for a month, I actually lost 45 pounds within a month. Now
Wow.
most of that would be water weight. Okay, most of that would be water weight. But I lost 45 pounds, and I went to my doctor, my GP at the time, and there he was in it, after giving me a checkup and taking blood samples and stuff, lipid and all the usual samples. Now I lost 45 pounds, and my blood sugar was down, my A1C was down. Okay, and there he is chomping on a cheese Danish with a slice of pizza on the desk and a can of Coke, and he said, Atkins will kill you. I mean, you know, and like a fool, I believed him. Okay, I actually believed him, and I stopped Atkins, and then I just proceeded hopelessly, following. I tried being a vegetarian, I tried everything, and basically, I kept putting on weight despite jogging and running and exercising. And I've got all kinds of exercise equipment, okay, as well as jogging and walking. And I just kept putting on weight, and I started getting my overall health just got worse and worse and worse. I had a gallbladder operation. I had a gallbladder removed, and then I had a quadruple bypass.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, and that's all traceable to metabolic syndrome. We now know that sugar attacks the gallbladder, besides attacking all your other organs. Okay, sugar will actually, cause gallstones and infections in your gallbladder. Also, they now know it causes all kinds of things with your kidneys and other organs. Okay, so, But I didn't know that. I was in blissful ignorance, and there wasn't a single GP or doctor that told me. Okay.
Right.
So that's kind of where I got to. And I would say, let's see, I would say somewhere around last year, I had a visit, I went to visit my GP and he did blood panels. And I saw my A1C going into, I think it was 5.6. So I was technically on the edge of prediabetes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We now know that, uh, even if your A1C is 5.6, if you're not getting an insulin test or a C-peptide test, there's no way of knowing if you have real diabetes 2, or because very often the A1C is not a good marker. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You can actually have 5.6 or even 5.5, right? Uh, and already be into hyperinsulimia, already having different, the effects of high sugar, sugar, high glucose, etc., and doing damage to your body, and no doctor will diagnose you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. My husband
So
was diabetic for years.
exactly, that's the point. And the doctor will say, "Oh, look, your A1C looks great. See you next year."
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll say, "Eat less and exercise more," which used to drive me wild when they'd say that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I started, I took a second look at Atkins, and by now, thank God, there's a zillion YouTubes by, real doctors, you know what I mean? Not
Right.
just, and I mean, there's a growing movement of people who are who are providing, clinical information, clinical stuff. So I started to listen and watch the YouTubes, listen. Oh, there she is. There she is. She's coming in. Hello. Hi, Kathy. Welcome back.
I see your
So,
name.
okay, there we go. That's good. So
There we go.
anyway, hi, Kathy. Welcome back.
Hi. All right. I had the hubby come up and check out my stuff, so I think he
That's
fixed
good.
it.
Good. Okay. Well, basically, I'll just to recap. I just sort of explained my tale of woe that I spent probably 20 years getting misinformed and misdiagnosed by the
Yeah.
standard, you know. And I said I joined OA and I joined different organizations. I did. If there isn't a diet, there's probably not a single diet out there that I didn't try. And of course, every one of them had either loaded carbs or refined carbs, seed oils, okay, or hidden sugars,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And I kept getting these bad results. And I mentioned that I met this paleo guy, etc. And again, I just mentioned that I told your sister that I'd gotten the
This fucking computer.
okay. Uh, I had gotten the what do you call it? Gallbladder removed, and then the quadruple bypass. Okay, and that basically did it for me. That was, I was just I didn't understand what was wrong with me. Like I said, I did the research, and so finally, I got to confess, I actually started buying the Atkins shakes and the Slim Fast shakes, and believe it or not, I started losing weight. But the thing that got me worried is I started reading the labels, and of course, Slim Fast and Atkins, their products are loaded with sugars, seed oils, and all kinds of preservatives and chemicals, that we know are now are not so good for us, right?
Right.
And and then I joined various Facebook groups, and the couple of the people that I liked was Dr. Sewis, which is the South African guy. His name is Dr. Robert Sewis, and then Jason Fung and Dr. Tro, and then there's a whole Australian group I don't know if it's Low Carb Down Under or something like that. They run a lot of conferences, okay, and Dr. Berry. And I started watching their, and then I also watched a YouTube by a fellow called Dr. Lustig. He wrote the book Metabolical, which is
Okay.
actually an excellent book. So I started watching all these YouTubes and educating myself on what's going on. Now, what I'm saying is I'm so grateful that I have survived long enough, an age where this information is out there. Because, 25 years ago, you couldn't get any of this information
Right.
unless you were, a researcher. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the information is out there. And so finally, my last, I had a checkup in October last year. And I said, that's it. I think I was at 328.
Okay.
Now, I'm, I, I think when I was, when I was young and gorgeous, right? I'm about 6 foot, and my normal weight was about 160. Okay,
Okay.
and if I was beefing up for wrestling, it would be 170. Okay, but never more. About 100, between 160, 170 pounds, 6 feet tall. I was 328. Now
Okay.
that really scared me, right? And I said, that's it. I got to do something. I'm killing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started with, the, Slim Fast and Atkins with all their little cookies and, what I mean, keto bars and shakes and stuff. And again, I don't like the taste of sugar. I don't like sweet things. Okay. I'm more of a savory guy. I like, savory stuff.
Right.
But anyway, so little by little, I got more information, and the more information I got from the Facebook groups and the YouTubes, I dumped all the Slim Fast and Atkins stuff, and I
Mm-hmm.
went to regular, real food, home cooking, uh, high fat, low carb, and I started at about probably, I would say, maybe 100 carbs a day,
Okay.
of 100 grams of carbs a day. And hope Kathy can. Hello, Kathy. Hope you're back.
She said she was going to change computers.
Okay, that's good. That's okay. Anyway, so there we go. Hi
All
there.
right.
Welcome.
All right.
Hey
Now
there.
I'm in the basement where all the hard wire is.
There you go. Good. Okay, so we're now in my long shaggy dog story.
Okay.
I was telling your sister that
Uh-huh.
Michelle, that I had started with all the shakes, all the Atkins and Slim Fast stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like sweet stuff. In fact, you know uh, I'm more of a savory guy. I'm more of a, the carbs I like are like potato chips and popcorn. You know what I mean? I don't like candy or anything like that.
Right.
But so it tasted too sweet. You know what I mean? I said,
Right. Right.
this stuff is outrageously sweet. And then I read the labels. So gradually I started about 100 grams of carbs a day. And I got results, but I still had the cravings.
Okay.
So then I reduced it to 80 carbs, still had the cravings. Even though I was more or less fat adapted, but I was only at about one or two, in terms of ketone. You do the
Right.
keto measure. I was about a
Mm-hmm.
1 or a 2, and I was sort of, I call it semi-fast adapted. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't see my ketones go up until I went down to 40 grams a day.
Okay. And what did you start at? Like, what was your
About
starting one?
100 grams. About
Okay.
100 grams.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
usually where I tell people to start. At least, I mean, that would be a place to start, and then, yeah, titrate from there and see where
right.
you feel, and then you'll know where you can, like if I'm here, I'm still losing, but I'm still enjoying. I'm not feeling too deprived. Maybe you don't feel the keto flu is bad. And then, if you really are wanting, I'm like, oh, I really want to kind of kick this up a little, you can keep lowering them till 0,
Right.
if
Well,
so
I was
desired.
just, part of it was experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
and then part of it was also seeing what my threshold was.
Yeah.
What my threshold is in terms of what triggers the insulin, what
Right.
triggers the craving,
Right.
And I got down to about 20. I got down to a real classic Atkins 20 grams a day,
Okay.
and I was still kind of hovering. I was still not quite there. Then I guess I started fasting as well. Okay.
Okay.
And actually by the time I was at 20 grams a day, I was pretty much fat adapted. I was probably about a 3.
Okay.
Okay. Which is not bad. That's pretty good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I started fasting and I started to lose more weight more rapidly. I mean, and I wasn't doing massive fasting. I was doing like uh I think it'd be more like time restricted eating.
Okay.
Okay. They call it the 618 or the
Mm-hmm.
18-6 or whatever it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. 16/8.
uh
Yeah.
yeah, 16-8, whatever it is. I get the numbers mixed up. And I was getting good results. And then what I did was I went to 24 OMAD, okay, and I got really good results. Now I think we were talking about the my using EFT as a tool. I really had I didn't have the craving so much once I got below I'd say 40 grams, 20 grams a day.
Okay.
Uh, but I did have the fear that I was going to drop dead.
Okay.
Okay. I
Interesting.
remember we were talking about that fasting
Mm-hmm.
can trigger fight or flight
Yeah.
because let's face it, starvation is one of our number one fears.
Yeah.
So, that's just the way it is. But anyway, so I did OMAD and then I did a 24-hour and then I did a 36. And at that point, somewhere around there, I lost all hunger. What's no crave. In fact, I have to remind myself to eat now.
Yeah. That's
Actually, right
awesome.
now, I'm actually right now on a 48, and I should be eating at 8 o'clock tonight.
Okay.
That'll breaking my fast. But the truth is, I'm not hungry at all.
Okay.
So I gradually went to 24 to 36. And I waited a couple of weeks. I tried, that's how,
Mm-hmm.
spend a couple of weeks at OMAD, then go a couple of weeks on 36, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then, and now I'm playing around with, and the where I'm at right now is the way I've structured it or organized it. The scheduling drives you crazy. That's the
Mm-hmm.
one thing. And I'm glad I got that stuff from Dr. Fung, how to organize your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But
So when you do eat, let me ask you this question. When you do break your fast, how do you break it? Are you breaking it with protein? Are you breaking it with fat? And then also, do you feel like you're getting in enough calories that you're not going to lower your metabolic set point? You don't
right,
want that to go too low because you don't.
right. Well, basically, it's interesting. What I do, when I break a fast, I usually have about 2 cups of bone broth,
Okay.
which I make. I have 3 basic menus. I have a meat menu, I have a fish menu, and then I have a fowl menu. Okay, either chicken or turkey. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, and like I said, so I make a bone broth of either one. So the bone broth, if it like today, I'm having seafood again. Okay.
Okay.
So I've got a seafood soup. Okay.
Okay.
And I have 2 cups of that. I wait about 30 minutes and then I'll have, which is basically about 2 cups of seafood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And usually I'll add either coconut oil or olive oil, or since there's salmon, there's a lot of salmon oil. Now here's a trick. I also add cod liver oil.
Okay.
Now you can buy canned cod liver, which is
Mm-hmm.
either Russian or Icelandic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually fairly affordable,
Yeah,
and
Dr. Barry loves that stuff.
it's way cheaper than buying cod liver oil capsules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I do is I add, I pour all the cod liver oil all over because it's packed in cod liver oil. So I
Okay.
pour that all over the fish, okay?
Okay.
And I'll put about half of that into what I'm
Soup.
eating.
Okay.
Okay, and that'll be dinner tonight at 8 o'clock.
Now, do you eat vegetables? Do you eat?
No, I've gone
No,
carnivore
you've gone
because
carnivore.
I was experimenting just to see if I got better results. I
Yeah.
felt better, and frankly, I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
I will confess, I had my labs done. I think it was last week. It was
Okay.
on the 13th. And the only thing that was really that that's part of I'll get into that later, but my keto, I finally found a keto friendly doctor,
Oh, good. Yay.
and he looked at my labs. He says, well, your D3 is down. And
Okay.
he said, well, for your first labs on keto, you're doing great.
Good.
We definitely room for progress, but you're out of, he said, I'm no longer pre-diabetic,
Awesome.
no longer fatty liver.
Oh, yay.
And, he says, well, the triglycerides and everything else, that's going to start rearranging itself,
Yeah. Yeah.
the high ones and the low ones and all the
You're right.
HDL,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah. And
He
if
says,
you're
don't,
actively losing weight, it's hard. That's another thing, Dave, I learned from him is that when you're actively losing weight, then your cholesterol is hard to, he's like, pay attention, but he's like, I'd be more interested once your weight's stable for about 3 months,
right,
then, then check your labs, then you'll have a better idea of,
right.
are you in a good spot or not?
Right. So he said, everything he saw, he said no inflammation.
Good.
Uh,
Did he do a C-peptide? Is that what
yeah,
he did?
yeah, he just went through the whole, it was like 3
Nice.
pages of
Oh,
labs,
wow.
So he
Awesome.
said, inflammation is no inflammation. And he said the only thing he saw was that I had, really low D3, which is
Okay.
important. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking some supplements for that. Okay.
And I just learned that I didn't even know this, that you should not take vitamin D at night because it interferes with melatonin production
Right.
and messes up your sleep. And I had been taking it at bedtime, and I'm like, wonder if that's part of my problem. So
Right. So
switch that to
basically,
the morning.
and he says, we'll take another bunch of labs in 3 months. So
Nice.
I got the right guy. I don't have to,
Good.
like I said, talking to my GP, it was like talking to the wall.
Yep.
And talking to my cardio was like talking to the wall. He
Yeah.
wants me on statins.
Yep.
So anyway, again, so I would say so far, we're now into week 13. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, I'd say over about 60, maybe 61, 62 pounds have been lost.
Nice.
Okay. But what's really important is that my A1C is down to 5.3.
That's awesome.
So I'm out of danger. I mean, obviously there's room for improvement,
Always.
but
Yeah.
the no inflammation and no insulinemia and no, what was the third one? That was the other one. No inflammation. And he does,
Oh, the fatty liver. You said no fatty liver.
fatty liver, yeah. So that's great progress, and that's
Yeah.
just,
That's
that's fine. I'm happy with that, and the pounds will come off when the pounds come off.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, sometimes our body, it knows that it's doing stuff, and it'll take care of that fatty liver first. It's going to take, and sometimes people don't see the weight loss initially. So I think that that's important to recognize too, that, unfortunately our fat actually protects us, stores toxins. And so if your body's sensing, oh, wow, you really already kind of toxic, it's going to be cautious of releasing that fat. So, you have to kind of get internally healthy first before your body's willing to let it go.
Well, I've noticed a kind of seesaw. I would say every 3 weeks, I'll get a stall.
Okay.
And I'm no longer, at one point I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
But then, my doc said, well, your body likes to take a break
Mm-hmm.
and reorganize itself
Yep.
and readjust itself. Not only that, he said, maybe you should hydrate more.
Okay.
And so I started, I make my
Okay.
own water. I make my own water.
Okay.
I distill it, and
Okay.
I add ready salt to it.
Okay.
And I up to, but I don't count exactly how much water I drink, but I would say
Yeah.
between 3 and 4 liters a day.
That's good.
In other words, I just listen to my body. If I feel
Yeah.
thirsty, I drink.
Drink.
And and what I add is I add 1 teaspoon of ready salt per liter.
Okay.
Okay. And that's about the most salt you can put in a liter of water without tasting the salt.
Okay.
I've noticed that if you put
Okay.
anything more, you
Yeah.
know you're drinking seawater. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nobody wants that. Nobody
Right.
wants that.
But it's
so.
actually tastes just like water. Doesn't taste any different. So
Right.
that's fine. And what happened when I upped my water? Whoosh! I lost like 10 pounds.
Oh, you had the fat flush. Nice.
Yeah, it just went whoosh.
Nice.
And that was pretty nice. So now I just kind of take it as I'll get a stall. I'll just hydrate. Also, I've started exercising.
Okay. Yeah, you're talking about walking the other day.
Walking, and at one point, look, this guy used to jog 6 miles a day, and I got to a point where walking to the mailbox was really scary.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
mean, my heart would, I'd be sweating and pump, the heart would be thumping. Now it's a quarter mile. So a quarter mile was the first goal. Then
Your
I
mailbox is a quarter mile from your house?
well, it's an eighth of a mile there and an eighth back.
Okay.
Quarter mile. Okay.
Okay.
So it was it was a schlep for me
Okay.
anyway. Now I can do it. Now I can do it. It's okay. And then I've started walking. We have a kind of a circular driveway.
Okay.
So I just like I just keep going around and around in circles. Right? And so now I'm up to a mile.
Nice.
And I want to see. Obviously the optimum is 2 miles. They say 2 miles is the best.
Okay.
And if I can get up to 3 miles or 4 miles, that would be nice. I don't have to go 6 miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 2 is. They say 2 miles is good. 3 is nice.
Yeah.
But but it takes an hour to walk. It takes an hour. It takes 15 minutes to walk a mile.
Yeah.
So 4 miles in an hour. That's normal. That's a normal pace.
Yeah.
That's okay. But it takes time. So anyway, like I said, at this moment right now, there are no cravings. And again, I have that leptin response, that I just don't feel hungry. And when the trick is when eating, eat slow. Because part of the carb thing is stuff it, scarf real fast. That's also part of our culture,
Yeah.
Scarf it down. And of course, that doesn't give the body to do that leptin feedback thing, checking with the stomach. Are you full yet?
Yeah.
So that's part of the other idea. Some people call it mindful eating. Some people call it sequential eating.
I think Dr. Sivas calls it, I think he calls it sequential eating.
Right. And again, what that means is give your body time for the signal to go from the stomach to the head to say, hey, you're full, buddy. You know? And so I just stop eating when I'm full.
Good.
And that's it. And I don't feel guilty. I'm full and I can't eat anymore.
Okay.
Now the interesting thing is, and this just is me. Okay, this is me. Very rarely can I eat 2 meals a day.
Okay. So are you finding you eat a big meal? Do you ever find then you eating a small one, or you're just a 1 meal a day kind of guy?
Well, I would say that my big meal is 2 cups.
Okay.
That's not a big meal by anybody's standard, but
no.
That's 2 cups. I eat that. If I eat that at 2 o'clock, or I eat it about usually or 11. Sometimes I'll eat at 11, depending it's how I feel,
Right. Yeah.
If I eat it at 11 or 2, there have been days I'm not hungry at 6 or 7. I'm just not hungry. And if I'm not hungry, why eat?
Do you find, I'm curious, with the carnivore, because I follow a couple of them, do you find some people are reporting that they found themselves being hungry if they ate ground beef versus like a steak, or chicken versus beef, or?
I didn't notice a difference.
Okay.
And again, part of the, I've had to change all my shopping habits too, because it's all about trying to get the safest food you can find.
It
I
doesn't
have
cost an arm and a leg.
well, that's the research. I actually found one or two websites that sell decent food, real food, quote unquote. They're
Mm-hmm.
talking about meat.
Mm-hmm.
Not much more than the most expensive supermarket in my area.
Oh, that's good. Which
And
ones are you ordering
it's
from?
Wild Fork. I don't know if you've
Wild
ever heard.
Fork?
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I'll hold on. I'll let me find I'm
Yeah.
just going to go to
I'm
my
always looking.
website.
I actually came across it's a brand called Peterson with a D. It's Pederson, and they're pork products, but there's no sugar in any of their products.
Well, that's
No,
good.
in their bacon and their ham, no nitrites, no nothing. So that was exciting. And we went to a grocery store and found roast beef that had no caramel color and no sugar in it. And it's hard to find like lunch meats that are,
All right, I just
clean.
put Wild Fork Foods,
Oh, I see it. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I'll share
okay,
that. I'll
in
have
the
to check them
chat.
out.
And the
Okay.
reason, the real reason I like them is I don't have to buy half a cow.
Nice. Okay.
Some of those places,
Yeah.
$200 minimum, $300 minimum,
Yeah.
this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're buying by the month, I just, I like to buy,
Mhm.
bi-weekly, or what I mean.
Yeah. Like what I
I'm
need.
just right. But they have a $35 minimum, which is fine.
Yeah, that's not too bad. That's fair.
So I can buy, I can. So I'm basically eating mostly, frankly, organ meats.
Okay.
So that's heart,
Mhm.
ruminants, the heart, kidneys, liver, tripe. Okay,
You're
and
brave.
and here's the reason. My cat is my teacher because he's my local carnivore.
Mhm.
Okay, and I just do what he does. When he catches a mouse, right?
Mhm.
He eats the stomach and the head, and he leaves the lean meat. He ignores the lean meat
Isn't that funny? Interesting.
because the most nutritious bit are the organs
Yep.
and the brain,
Yep.
believe it or not.
Yep.
And
I
actually,
think the brain's like pure fat, isn't it?
but it's the right kind of fat for your
Yeah.
brain.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you're right. Your brain needs fat.
Yep.
It doesn't need sugar. It needs
Nope.
fat.
Needs fat.
And it needs protein.
So you're saying Papa Joe eating the squirrel brains was a good idea, huh?
Yep. Yep.
And
Well, if
you'll
you think
notice
about it, our ancestors knew better. I mean, and that's what they did is they watched the animals, and then if they would eat the organs and the rump and the brain and all that stuff, and then they're like, okay, well, monkey see, monkey do, no pun intended, and
absolutely. Well, again, Native Americans or First Nation in Canada, whatever you want to call it, original inhabitants of
Mhm.
North America. When they especially the Inuits love those tourists. They have, a lot of them are like tourist guides,
Mhm.
and they love hunting with Europeans or white people because the white people, the white people go for the lean meat and they
Mhm.
leave the organ meat for the Inuits.
Yeah.
And they think the white guys are stupid because the
Yeah.
best food is the organ meat
Yeah,
and
and
the
they eat the
brain.
blubber, man. They eat
The
they
blob, exactly. Yeah.
eat all that, and that's it. They're healthy
So
people, actually.
absolutely. Well, again, like I said, it's been an interesting. So, also I bone marrow. So
Mhm.
I make a kind of. In fact, I've got a bone marrow soup, which
Ooh,
is
yummy. I
tomorrow's
love
soup.
bone marrow. I love it.
That's tomorrow's soup. Okay,
Yummy.
so tomorrow is red meat day. It's
Okay.
so it'll be heart, kidney, heart, kidney, and heart, kidneys, and liver.
Are you just
And
eating that? Like, what are you doing with them?
well, I make a kind of I chop it up and I spice it up and
Okay.
I'll add I think I use chili and paprika,
Okay.
make it kind of interesting,
Okay. Are you making like a
Uh,
burger or just like a chopped meat?
like a chopped meat plate.
Okay.
I mean, no, I don't mean hamburger, but a
Right.
kind of
Okay.
a sauteed dish, kind of a
Okay.
saute kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the fish tonight's is squid, mussels, clams, oysters. What else?
Nice.
Shrimp. Again, it's kind of like a
Okay.
paella without the rice.
There you go.
Okay, and also some salmon because I
Okay.
want the fat. I want the
Yeah.
fat from the salmon.
Yep.
And then you know, and then I flip, you know, ghee. I use ghee for that.
Okay.
And then, you know, but like I said, for the chicken and the turkey, I'll use curry.
Okay.
And for the, like I said, I'm very, you know, I mean, I change it, or I change it up and I switch it around. But
Okay.
basically, I want to keep the basic proportions of fat and protein. I
Mhm.
make sure there's a good ratio.
Yep.
And then I just, you know, and let's face it, curry, there's no carbs in curry or
Right.
paprika or, you know,
Yeah.
chili, you know.
Yep.
And then I'll either use coconut oil,
Okay.
olive oil, or animal, you know, tallow or pork
Okay.
fat,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
I have jars of bacon drippings.
Right. Right.
Liquid
I
gold
also,
around here.
okay, exactly. Well, again, when I do have a breakfast, I have a late breakfast. If I do a 2 meal day,
Yeah.
I make a kind of an omelet
Okay.
where I throw in bacon. I'll also chop up maybe some bits of pork, you
Okay.
know, uh, and then I'll use butter or ghee,
Okay.
you know,
All right.
and
No,
so
like
that's
you don't
like
ever use like onions or anything. You're just
at this moment I'm just you know,
okay.
I'm not
I
using
love it. Okay.
anything. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just sticking to the manual at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, again, I'm just concerned. I want to keep the numbers, you know, and
Yeah.
I do take a blood. I have a Keto Mojo,
Okay.
and then I've got a couple of other devices that when I compared them, their results to the lab results, they were off.
Okay.
But I had an A1C Now device. It said I
Whoa.
was, and it said I had 4.8,
Okay.
when in fact the LabCorp sent back 5.3.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just sort of saying, well, you know, it was nice to play around with the devices,
Yeah.
but you know,
I'm waiting
since
for the in-home insulin device. That would be
that'd be
so
interesting,
helpful.
absolutely.
That would
Well,
be
that would be interesting if they came up with it. But again, it's you got to,
apparently
you
got to
know,
spin the blood or something to get at
right.
it.
But doctors, you know, again, doctors have to start asking for the insulin test and
Mm-hmm.
pay, and to get doctors to do it. I mean, you know, you have to. I mean, all right. So let's go to the doctor's story. Okay. Well, my first doctor ended up dying of diabetes because he, you know, there he was with his cheese Danish and his Coke and his pizza, telling me that Atkins was going to kill me, and he died of diabetes, right? And he actually started having toes and feet, toes amputated. He
Oh
had,
my gosh.
it
Poor
really
guy.
got bad for him. So, you know, God bless him, but you know, but again,
Mm-hmm.
that's how he was educated. He didn't know any better, you know?
Yeah.
So
Nice.
anyway, like I said, I've gone through cardio and GP, and I went, you know, I went on Diet Doctor, and I think I was, the way we met is I was investigating Dr. Tro,
Yep.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I called about 20 doctors, okay? Uh, Dr. Sewis is going to see me in April.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. He's got quite the list.
Quite a list. So, but I keep updating him my progress anyway, and I send him my
Okay.
labs anyway.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to see him in April, and
Okay.
that'll be great. But I called about 20 doctors, okay, and I interviewed them, and I found a guy who lives in Pennsylvania who does remote,
Oh, nice.
and he's you know, like I said, and I have a special app with him so I can text him anytime,
Oh, nice.
and he can text me, and then we get one, you know, telemedicine session a month.
Okay. Do you know, is he
Usually,
restricted to Pennsylvania?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh,
he's happy to take. He took me on as a patient, you know,
and yeah, you're
as
in New York. Okay.
yeah, I'm in New York. Uh, and so I'm getting the support I needed. Now, I also went through an army of nutritionists who I wanted to shoot. I mean,
Mm.
they were, you know, I mean, I can't believe it, you know, and that, you know, I think there has to be so much re-education, you know,
Yeah.
even at the nutritionist level,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I just gave up on them. But again, I got, like I said, I finally found, I interviewed them. I took charge of my medical health,
Yeah.
instead of giving them all the power, I said, hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I'm paying you. You work for me.
Yeah.
Tell me why I should hire you as my, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
That was
Love
my new
it.
attitude. That's my
Yeah.
new attitude, And well, of course, I'm paying them a lot of money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, like I said, this guy's kind of interesting. He's I think he's from South Asia. He might be. I'm not sure exactly where he's from, but
Okay.
he's not native. He's not an American. He's immigrated. Okay.
Okay.
And I actually had my last session. He was on an airplane to Saudi Arabia
Oh,
to see
wow.
one of his fancy schmancy patients.
Wow.
And so he gave me a session while he was in the airplane.
Nice.
And we were going through the labs. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to pay him
Yep.
for that
Yep.
service, that
Yep.
he'll take the time for me. Obviously I wanted to have Seawiss is the rock star and Dr. Berry are the rock star, but frankly, I ended up with a guy who, treats me just right. He knows the same stuff both those guys
Yeah,
know.
that's good. Hopefully he's listening, they're all listening to each other and educating each other and,
Right.
but, so Miss Michelle, any questions? I know you came here to support me, which I love and adore you for. So, but I'm just curious if anything he said sparked any questions or.
No, I found it very, very interesting. I always struggle with the things that I hear Kathy saying, and then the things the doctor says to me, because they both so often contradict each other. So I always struggle with that sort of thing. But as Kathy knows, and I don't mean to be hidden, I don't know how to unhide myself. But Kathy will tell you that I'm a big girl.
Okay.
And so she's trying desperately to get me to take better care of myself. When I did do Atkins a couple years ago, I was quite successful. However, it was so foreign to the way I had ever eaten in my entire 60 years of life. It was hard. It was hard. So I keep listening, and I trying to take in information, and she's right. I'm here to support my baby sissy.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'll listen. We'll both help you, dear. And let's put it this way: this will put an extra 10 years on your life, okay? If not 20, okay? If you do what we're saying, okay?
Okay.
Trust me, this is life or death.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get older, it is seriously life or death. And not only that, it's quality of life.
Right.
Because having diabetes or even being high in, as you get older, is no fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I gave up an organ and had got myself I had plumbing rewired or whatever. And I could have bought a house with what that operation cost me, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
well, and and I don't, is it okay if I share?
That's fine.
Okay. And her husband happens to be diabetic.
Okay.
And, I don't know. He'd be hard. I don't know what would help him.
Well, we were talking about, it's one thing, I don't know if your sister told you, Michelle, I'm a psychotherapist, or retired. They still try to drag me back in, but I'm retired. I still have patients calling me, but I was part of the system and I worked for a psychiatrist. You know what I mean? And of course, because on the pecking order, you got the middle guys, and then you got the high priests. You know what I mean?
Right.
And of course, I was and I respected the guys above me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because we're all part of that system. And so I was the good little soldier, you know. But the reason it's so insidious, diet is so insidious, it's one thing to tell a heroin addict, hey, you got to stop using drugs,
That's right.
okay? Or tell an alcoholic, hey, man, you know, put a plug in the jug, you know?
Mhm.
But to tell somebody they got to change their lifelong habits that they grew up with, that they were programmed as babies,
Mhm.
okay? All right? Uh, you know, it's a real shocker, and it does trigger a lot of stuff, okay? Which is why, you know, Kathy and I were talking about my also doing some special purpose videos on helping people get over cravings and fears, okay?
Mhm.
Which we'll do maybe later on. But
Yeah.
again, so it's perfectly understandable why people have this real culture shock, you know, of, my God, I got to give up everything. And not only that, there's a lot of emotional food associations. Uh,
Yes. Kathy and I
listen,
talk about that a lot.
listen, you know, if you were a little girl and you had a boo-boo, right, and you hurt yourself, mom or granny would come out with some comfort food, wouldn't she?
See, I
Yeah.
don't remember that specifically, but maybe they did.
I
I
mean,
know
I
when I was
remember when I had a boo-boo, my granny used to fix me some cinnamon toast.
oh,
And what is that? Pure
Carbs,
sugar,
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 sugar.
bread, and
Yeah.
cinnamon
Yeah. Well,
and butter.
I mean, we had the, you know, uh, the snack foods, you know, the
The snack,
cupcakes, the hostess, all that stuff, you know.
right?
Now, growing up, our stepdad, he was very big on cooking dinner. Like that was something we really always had was a homemade meal. I was not allowed to eat after school. So I would sneak
Okay.
potatoes out of the refrigerator and eat the raw potatoes. Because that's what we had. But yeah, I mean, our family's from the South, so everything's fried, you know, and it's biscuits and gravy and and the other thing, that's changed is we're not out tilling the fields. We're not out working in 40 acres every day, burning it off or any of that. We're very sedentary, which, there's some people that can get away with eating more carbs than others, but for the most part, our bodies don't need it. There's absolutely no such thing as
A
what's the word?
carbohydrate
A,
tree,
yeah, there's nothing, you need. Your body will make whatever carbs it needs through gluconeogenesis, and
right?
you know, but yeah, and I think as we've talked, that piece that's missing is the emotional piece that like the feeling of deprived, and I deserve to eat chocolate cake. Like, how do we, that's I think we'll be like, or if we're mad, you're like, oh, we're mad at our spouse or something, we're like, oh, F you, and then we go inside the Oreo box, like that's
That's
just,
emotional eating. That's
yeah, it's
emotional eating. Yeah,
insanity.
absolutely. Well, again, sugar's a drug. It's
Yeah,
frankly, as far as I can, it should be, you know, class one listed. It should be listed as a
yep,
dangerous subject,
yep,
dangerous substance. Uh, but again, you know, talking about traditional forms of eating, just remember traditional foods, whether it's the South or the North or wherever, animal fat, okay, and the food was grown back
yep,
then on a
yep,
real farm
yep, yep,
with no pesticides and no chemicals and,
yep.
you know, GMO or anything like that. And so it was fresh, and it
Mhm.
was and again, you, as you said, you went and plowed 40 acres, you
Yeah,
worked it off.
yeah.
But the point is, even you know, even the diet 75 years ago is healthier than what we eat
Oh
today,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know. uh any
Well, it
kind
was
of,
right about then. It was like what, the late 60s-ish, 70s, when there was that flip of going to the low fat and these, you know, all this other stuff and the Ansel Keys stuff, and flat gonna kill you. Unfortunately, he had the backing, and you know,
right. Well, again, the, you know, the southern fried stuff, right? As long as it's, you know, you're using animal fat,
yeah,
and if you're not using your standard processed
Yeah.
grains,
Yeah. Yeah.
seed oils or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, it's meat. It's meat.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe the flour and the cornbread or crumbs could be.
Yeah.
Even corn once upon a time was healthy,
Yep.
but a
We've
corn cob, 200 years ago was about yay
yeah,
big,
it's like, yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it wasn't all fructose.
Right.
You know,
Yep. Well,
the, the,
we've bred our fruits and vegetables to be sweeter because it's addicting.
well, that's again, part of in my various attempts at diets, right? One of the diets that I had was I would allow fruit, right?
Mhm.
You know, so there I was being so good cutting down on obvious carbs, but then I had an apple,
Yep.
and an apple today is like, I don't know,
Yep.
6 or 7 teaspoons of sugar, maybe
And
even
sugar
more.
is sugar. And I think that's really hard for people. I know I'll say, well, sugar is sugar. And I'll get, somebody's like honey. And I'm like, there's a lot of benefits in honey. I'm not like out to poo poo honey. I go, if you're going to have anything, like maybe that would be the sugar I would eat because there's at least other stuff in there that's beneficial. I go, but sugar, your body doesn't know.
Right.
And
Exactly.
actually, sugar from fruit is the worst.
Right.
Fructose
Well,
is
that's
the
why
worst.
honey. That's why honey is. Listen, I used to keep bees as a hobby,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and
then,
and basically I would allow myself honey. I didn't take sugar, but
mhm.
I would have honey. And guess what? That fructose goes right into the bloodstream.
Yep. It's like mainlining it.
Exactly. And so again, Michelle, what a lot of this is really getting to understand your biochemistry. Okay, what's really going on with your body inside once you consume these things, and that's the stuff that I think it's just education, and it's not that difficult to learn because nowadays it's not a secret anymore.
Right.
It's
Agreed.
they're all the YouTubes, and again, it's not crazy conspiracy stuff. These are serious MDs who are really concerned about this country's health. And listen, I would even call it a situation of national security. We have an army that is too fat to fight.
Yep.
The army came out with a report that I don't know an astronomical percentage of the soldiers were
Yep.
obese.
Yep.
Not only were they obese, they had they had they had pre-diabetes and all kinds
Mhm.
of stuff
Yep.
because they're fed this standard of and they're
Junk.
young kids, and
Yep.
these are kids. These
I
aren't.
know. Well, my son's
Oh,
at college and he's in the military and they eat like crap and it makes me insane.
yeah.
Drives me nuts. And I met this young lady, her name's Team Whiskey is her program, and she was in the military and she came across the keto diet and now she uses that to teach first responders, military, and also like with PTSD. Like there's a lot of improvement for people who are, I mean, mental health in general, coming off the sugar roller coaster is ginormous. And
Absolutely.
um, even
I
with
told.
addiction, even with actual alcohol addiction, people, you were talking about, your overeaters guy, that guy, like people who have alcohol problems specifically, well, there's a lot of sugar in alcohol. So it would make
Well,
sense that if you can get off of sugar, it lessens the triggers for you.
I
So
would assume, and again, this is a guess. I don't know what the actual biochemistry, but probably the same metabolic predisposition that would predispose somebody to be an alcoholic is probably what makes them a setup for metabolic syndrome as well.
sure.
Carb addiction, sugar
Yeah.
addiction. I
Yep.
think it's all in the same
Yep.
box, as it
Yep.
were. Okay.
Yep.
So,
Just your poison. What's your poison?
what bag of sugar are you buying today?
Yeah. Yeah.
What labels on the bag?
Mhm.
But again, like I said, for myself, I just look at it as a question of life or death. I mean, I don't expect to live forever, but I'd like the quality of my life to be as good as it possibly could be,
Right.
and if it means shedding the pounds, but it's more about the numbers, the inside stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so there you go. That's, like I said, Michelle, is there anything else you want to ask about? Go ahead, please.
No, thank you so very, very much for your time and your knowledge. It's been very, very interesting.
Okay, so we've gone about an hour,
Yep.
Kathy.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
but I'd be happy to, do a quick little, you talking about yourself and how you walk barefoot through the
Oh
snow,
boy, uphill
uphill
both
both.
ways.
Right. But again,
So,
so how did you get started, or what happened?
so very common, just that whole, my whole life I was a pretty fit person. I was active. I didn't really have a weight issue, if you will. I mean, a lot of my reason for dieting was typically vanity purposes. I didn't have any significant health issues. Didn't really have a weight problem, like where I was like, okay, this is not just falling off, was after I had my son. It was like that 50 pounds, that just, and then it was interesting. I found a program. It was called Prism, and it was a religious based program, and it was basically 1,200 calories, and then they cut out the sugar. So, but it was super restrictive. Like it was tough, but it worked because I wasn't eating sugar, and that was probably my first entrance into more whole food eating, kind of avoiding the processed foods and things like that. So, I kind of went down that road. I think I got it fairly under control. Then I had my second kid, and then, just kept going through the same 40 pounds over and over again, and again, for me, it was true, more of a self-esteem thing, how I looked, how I felt about myself, all that stuff. And then I belonged to a boot camp class, and the guy running it, he's a hoot and he's a little crazy, but that's okay. He had a keto challenge for 5 days. He's like, just 5 days is all I want, And I'm like, all right, I'll give you 5 days. And he had a little carrot at the end, which was a prize, which was like a free training session and a bag full of goodies. And I'm like, all right. And so I that's what started. That's what opened the door. And then at the end of the week, I'm like, oh, well, don't I feel 100 times better not eating crap all week? And I wasn't finding myself being tired at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I dove really head first, like deep, like asked my sister, I drove her nuts. I drove everybody nuts. And then I just educated myself. I just listened and listened and read and researched. And I went to the Metabolic Health Summit, which that was a game changer, because then I got to meet these guys like in real life, these researchers, and, they were talking and the data was there. I mean, it wasn't this tinfoil hat stuff going on in the corner. I mean, this was people at Harvard and Duke, and they had a whole session of people who were doing studies. Like they had a whole night devoted to people who were doing studies, and then met mental health professionals, which is my corner, and just talking to Dr. Georgia Eid, a psychiatrist, and then Christopher Palmer, and then and it just became very apparent that food is plays a huge role in so many things. And then being angry about being misled. I don't know if doctors do it intentionally. I hope not. I think the establishment does it intentionally. Like I think
Right.
there's money that's talking. But I think doctors, they're kind of they feel like, okay, this is what I have to do in order to keep my license or whatever. This is the insurance company says I have to do or whatever. So,
Standard of practice, standard of
standard of
care. Yeah.
practice for sure. And so for me, not only did it help me regain control over the way I ate, I did allow me to lose the weight, so I do feel better. I mean, that's my own little demon that I deal with, is, body dysphoria and all that jazz, and am I good enough and stuff. But truly how you feel. Like, being able to not like, I'm gonna jinx myself. So I'm knocking on the wood, like once I changed the way I ate, I wasn't getting sick anymore. Like I didn't find myself having to deal with, I'd get a cold. It would last maybe 1 or 2 days. So, like that was a big difference for me. My body, like and that was the other thing is when I did the keto challenge, I remember going, my knees were starting to bother me. And I'm like, this was 5 years ago. And I'm going, well, young for to be like that to be bothering me, right? Go to the bathroom in the morning, you're like, oh, that's not good. And then that went away. The joint pain is definitely improved. I mean, I have some, but not, I mean, I think some of it's more because I'm working out more, doing strength training. So I think it's more just building muscle soreness, that kind of thing. But I don't have the joint, like the knee that achy joint pain. That's not there anymore. And yeah, and just really appreciating whole foods, like trying to get my kids to getting my family to eat that way. And my mom, interesting, I started doing it and she's like, are you sure you're supposed to be eating all that fat? And I said, well, that's what they tell me. And that was like at the beginning. And then she read Dr. Berg's book. I had gotten his book, the body type book, and she read it and she tried it and she lost, I don't know how much she lost, but she felt better. She went to bed and she would eat a bowl of Cheerios with almonds. That's what she would eat before she went to bed. And she has psoriasis. So and her psoriasis was bad. It is way improved now. She has to be careful. She tries to avoid certain foods that trigger it and stuff like that, but it's definitely much better. She unfortunately got Lyme disease, like what would you say, 2 years ago, Michelle?
I think it'll be 3 years this summer.
Yeah, and that's still lingering with her.
Mm.
So she gets these bouts of fatigue. But anyways, back to me. So yeah, I just, for me it was, not like I said, I didn't have any medical things slapping me in the face, but learning about it, I realized like, you learn about Alzheimer's, they're calling that the type 3 diabetes. So that using a ketogenic diet and stuff can help improve Parkinson's, and even now the sphere of cancer, specifically brain tumors seem to respond very well to low carbohydrate diet. That's that the summit they had. I mean, I actually met a couple that lived here, and the guy had a brain tumor, and his wife and him went on the keto diet. His brain tumor shrunk enough where they could remove it
Mm.
before it, so to me it's just like we had a grandma that ended up with dementia, and she actually had diabetes in her older age too. So I don't want to be a burden on anybody. Like I don't want that. I don't want to be that. I want to, one of our grandmas, she lived to be 104, and she really like up until like maybe the last year of her life, she was riding a four-wheeler. She was like, I'm like, if I'm going to live that long, it's got to be that way. I want to be healthy. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to, money. I'm a big money worrier. So I think about medical costs, like I don't want to have to be going to the doctor and having all this medication and all that stuff. Like that would, knowing I can avoid it, right? When that it's like, if you just kind of do these things now, you're gonna, it might be a little more expensive to eat this way initially until you figure it out. Like what you're doing, you're eating, once or twice a day, you're eating carnivore, you're not buying all that extra junk. It's probably cheaper now once you figure it out. Initially I think it can be, because I think some people get into the products or whatever, and you're trying this and trying that. But once I know if I didn't have a household that I was feeding, I would eat very differently. I would probably be more carnivore-ish, or the occasional salad here or there, but unfortunately that's not the flavor of this house. But yeah, I mean, so for me it's just, it helps me stay in control of the eating, the eating, the the addiction part is always there. I have to fight it. I have moments like I told you today, my dad brought donuts and they won. And I don't even know why. Like it was just because everybody else was doing it. So I'm like, well,
That's part of it is there's this high social, to eating, we eat in family or in community. We all sit around the table and nobody wants to be you don't want to upset the apple cart.
right.
And again, it just takes, as you say, you've been doing it most of your life anyway. And when that plate's passed, you grab
Yep.
one.
Yep.
I mean, that's, and of course, nobody says it's heroin.
Right. Nobody's there going, oh my God, I can't believe you ate the donut.
You know, but
I
again,
get the, oh, you can have one.
well,
Like my
yeah.
dad's like, never. And I'm like, and there's there's times where I've told him like, no, I can't. I go, because right now I know I'm in a place that if I do it, I won't stop. There's times where I feel like I can and be like, okay, I can enjoy a bite or two and I'm fine. So I've learned that part about myself, that there's, I can handle it, or I schedule it even like Christmas or whatever, knowing I'm like, I'm going to enjoy Christmas Day, whatever's made, or like if we go and visit my grandfather who's 99, he specifically makes me a pecan pie, like, but there's a lot of work that has to go on up here for me to be able to do that and not it derail me completely.
Well, I think,
So,
specifically for women, I mean, you're the food maker, the
I am
nurturer, the
yes,
caretaker, and and again, there's also the loyalty in family. You want to be a good daughter or a good wife or a good sister. So there's all that stuff that plays into this as well. And you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to be the crazy aunt Kathy with her weirdo diet, right?
yeah. I'm already the weirdo, so it's okay.
Yeah, but it's a culture thing, man. Let's face it. 100 years ago, if you look at the photographs of people 100 years ago, they're all skinny.
Yep.
If you look at people who were in the 50s, pictures of my parents, they're all skinny.
Yep.
Okay. And, and so the food, let's face it, the American diet was still pretty much meat and potatoes and a veg, right?
Yep.
But it was grown on a farm that was like, for humans.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't, space food or chemical food.
Right.
And high fat. They fried bread. I mean, let's face it. You had bacon and eggs for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Fried bread. And then in the South, okay, you had some more starch and stuff. What is it? The corn thingy? What are the grits?
Oh, grits.
But even then, the corn back then was, healthier,
Yep.
So again, it's so that was just, but now you take a photograph of any class
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's obese.
Yep.
And they say that, metabolic syndrome is probably going to break the medical system.
Yep.
Within the next 20 years, it's going to destroy the medical system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, COVID is nothing compared to a whole nation on
right.
Diabetes.
Yeah. Diabetes and heart disease and liver and all those things. But diabetes is huge, and it's and it's the medication's expensive and the care is expensive, and and it's something, and and that's the other thing. You say, well, you can reverse it, and people are like, no, you can't. I'm like, well, yeah, you can. You can reverse it. And I go, if you keep your A1C and you keep your blood sugars normal for 5 years, you're considered cured.
Right.
That's only type 2 diabetes. You gotta be careful. People get, I have, type 1 is different. That's a totally different ball game, but type 2 can be reversed.
Right.
Fatty liver can be reversed. Fatty pancreas, which is, I found out, more dangerous than fatty liver.
Right.
So.
Well, like I said, so anyway, listen, I want to endorse you for your trip, your travel, your journey.
Thank
and
you too.
Michelle, I don't want to twist your arm, but listen, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it, Michelle.
She does plenty of twisting, so it's all right. I'm used to it.
Like
Hey.
I would start, like I said, now here's the funny story. I'm going to share this. The girlfriend or former girlfriend who told me that conspiracy story about
Yeah.
big pharma, big agro, whatever.
Yeah.
And I started sending her stuff, you know, just a little kind of quiet nudge, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she sort of said, well, you know, she can't stop the sugar and the carbs, and she wakes up every morning craving food, you know.
Yeah.
And you know what I'd say to anybody is to start, just stop the sugar if you can. Just
Mm-hmm.
stop the sugar. Start with one thing and see if you can stay off sugar for a week, okay? And then stop buying stuff that has sugar in it. That's when you get that's where you need the research.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the conspiracy is they mislabel the food with all these funny names for sugar, right?
Yep. Well, if it ends in OSE, it's sugar.
Right. And then, you know, then as you get more knowledge, you can eliminate more and more of these products. I have 6 boxes of food that I want to give to the pantry that I you know, they're all, you know, they're brand new, unopened boxes and cans of food. 6 large boxes
Wow.
that I'm going to give to the pantry, you know, of stuff that I just can't do it. That's the stuff that was killing me, you know. But it's a gradual process. They'll, you know, if you just do a little bit every day, I'd start with the sugar because that's
Yep.
the big killer. That's the
Mm-hmm.
big one. And then, you know, as you get, and then educate yourself. And you know, this is it. At a certain point, you'll see it's not that complicated. It's not that hard to manage, Michelle. Okay. So
Okay.
you and again, the plus is you know, you will regain your health. It'll easily put another 20 years on your life.
I'm not sure that some people want me around that long.
I do.
You know, but again, if you keep on with the great American diet, the standard American diet, it's going to radically affect your quality of life and may even kill you. You know, it almost killed me.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
it's what it is.
it is.
Okay, well, we've
All
been an
right.
hour. Are you good for
Yes.
this? You good,
Yeah, we're
Michelle?
good.
Good?
This was